Brian Wright, you are a literal genius. The Spurs did it. For the first time in my 10 years of fandom, they have made a move so big at the trade deadline that it is going to completely change the trajectory of where this season is heading. And for what he did, I can't believe he pulled this off. The details are up on the screen now. The Spurs are going to receive De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin, and the Kings are going to get Zach LaVine, Sidy Cissoko, 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks, and the Bulls are going to get Zach Collins, Tre Jones, Kevin Huerter, and then they're going to get back their own pick from San Antonio that they currently own, which was acquired in the DeMar DeRozan trade back in 2021 when the Spurs sent DeRozan to the Bulls for Thaddeus Young, Al-Farouq Amino, and a top 10 projected first-round pick in 2025. I don't know how this got done. Obviously, these rumors have been circulating for quite some time now, and Brian Wright just pulled it off, and he could not have fleeced them anymore. They gave up Tre Jones, Zach Collins, and Sidy Cissoko, and they were able to keep the entire core together. There were rumors that Stephon Castle was going to be on the board, that Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, CP3, all those guys have stayed, and more importantly, the Spurs were able to hold on to the Atlanta first-round pick that they acquired in the DeJounte Murray trade that is currently unprotected in 2025 and 2027, and it has a pick swap in 2026. But what's more important is that 2025 pick, because Jalen Johnson is now out for the season. The Hawks are on an 8-game losing streak as I record this video, and that pick is completely unprotected, and it is holding so much potential as we get deeper and deeper into the season. The Hawks are trying to make a move. They're trying to scramble to get Brandon Ingram, and who knows what's going to happen. But all I know is right now, the Spurs just put themselves in line to finally be contenders in the Western Conference for years to come. This roster is not good. It was not good. It was Wembanyama, and there was a gap between everyone else. Obviously, I'm not trying to disrespect any players, but there was an absurd amount of talent level that was struggling. And when they competed against bigger, better teams like the LA Lakers, the Dallas Mavericks, the Milwaukee Bucks, even though they blew them out by almost 40 the other night, they were getting blown out because at this point, all teams had to do was just throw 3 players at Victor Wembanyama and then make the rest of the team beat him. Now, the Spurs get De'Aaron Fox, and his gravitational pull that he is going to have on defenses, his lightning quick speed, the way that he paces the floor, that is going to revolutionize the offense. He also is a very underrated perimeter defender, and he can get active with his hands whenever he is guarding one-on-one. But right now, the Spurs have finally put themselves at an advantage. I wouldn't say this is a go get a Western Conference Finals appearance now. This is something that is going to affect them down the road because De'Aaron Fox wanted to leave Sacramento, and he told them, the only team I want you to trade me to is San Antonio, and that's the one team he is going to sign an extension with. Now he's here. De'Aaron Fox does average 1.4 steals per game. That is going to be insane. He runs the floor. He spaces. He loves to play off the three-point line and get to the basket and drive. That is something the Spurs are lacking. Most of the drives that they have are done by Keldon Johnson when he just goes at full force, or with Stephon Castle, who is currently the best attacker on this team. Now Fox is going to be able to change that on all levels. They're going to be able to get the ball more to Victor Wembanyama. But more importantly, it's just this roster is still together. They didn't have to lose anyone important. You kept CP3, Vassell, Sohan, Castle. Those were the guys that you need to keep. You also kept Champagnie, who is one of the most underrated role players this season. I think he's top 10 in the NBA in corner threes made per game. He's a sharpshooter when he's hot. But now the Spurs have a true running mate to pair next to Wembanyama. I think Fox is 27. He's somewhere around there, 26 or 27, but he's in the midst of his prime, and now he's coming to San Antonio to play with a guy like Wembanyama. And to see the effects that Wembanyama has in just year 2, how he was willing to force his way to San Antonio to play with Victor Wembanyama, that shows the effect he already has, and that I don't think this is going to be the last star to try and come and play with the young sensation from France. There is still more moves to be made, obviously, with the loss of Zach Collins, and then Charles Bassey is just the only other center on the roster besides Wembanyama. There is now more moves to be made for Brian Wright. He has to get a center, whether that could be a Jonas Valanciunas from the Wizards, who are 6-40 something. They just ended their 16-game losing streak to Minnesota last night. It's time for them to go get another big so they can have a reliable big. Now, it also helps the bench because you're going to push Chris Paul to the bench most likely. Obviously, he's probably not going to start. I don't know what the situation is going to be between Stephon Castle and Sochan, who's coming off the bench. I know Castle has been starting lately, but Sochan kind of goes back and forth. The bench needs his rebounding, his cutting, his defense, but he is needed in all areas of the lineup. So that's going to be interesting to see where this plays out. One of the bigger implications about this deal, though, is the fact that the Spurs finally have a running mate next to Victor. Devin Vassell has really been in a slump over these last few weeks and pretty much for the entire month of December and January. I know Wembanyama was having one of his best months ever last December, but the problem was with Vassell's inconsistent play. The Spurs were kind of in a weird position where they really couldn't compete with anyone in the West. Sure, maybe they'll find themselves in the play-in game with Vassell as your second best player, but if you look at contending teams, there always is a Robin to a Batman. You know, you look at Giannis had Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. Tatum had Jaylen Brown, or Jaylen Brown had Jason Tatum, however you want to see it. LeBron's always had many guys. He's had Kyrie. One of the few teams that really didn't have an insane star really kind of feels like the Spurs in 2014 when Tim Duncan was still leading the way, but Kawhi was up and coming. But in hindsight, when you look at recent champions, there's always someone who is going to be the running mate next to the guy. The Spurs did not have that, and now they do have that. I didn't think the Spurs were going to be able to win a playoff series, maybe not even a play-in game, with Devin Vassell as their second-best player. But now, with Fox, the odds at them of potentially reaching the postseason for the first time since 2018-19 have just skyrocketed. Obviously, the West is still very tough. The Spurs are sitting at 12th at 21-25, but everyone else is above 500 above them. Golden State was above 500 last I saw, but the West is insane. It is crazily stacked, but now the Spurs are going to try and capitalize. Maybe they may not win the playoff series this year, but I would not be shocked to find them in the play-in game come April, because I think this roster is significantly better than Golden State's at this point with Wembanyama and Fox now pairing. But it's going to help Devin Vassell kind of ease back into that third role, because I think that's where he's going to be at his best, when he doesn't have to take 15 to 17 shots a game. Now at this point, you can let Victor do the damage, let Fox be a decoy, and maybe find Devin Vassell isolating and scoring what he does, making those tough fadeaways, taking those tough jumpers, because that's the way that Devin Vassell is efficient. When he gets the ball in his hands, he's an isolation scorer. He likes to take those step-back jumpers, but sometimes it was just inconsistent. You knew it was coming, and so when he had bad games, the Spurs were unlikely to win games because it was really just Wembanyama and everyone else who were struggling. Now, you get a guy the likes of De'Aaron Fox who is going to be consistent, who is a 20 points per game scorer his entire career. He's averaged 21.5 for his entire career. He's averaging 25 this year. He's taken 6.4 threes per game and shooting them at 32%. The Spurs need shooters. Fox is going to be a shooter. I know that is not the main premises of his game. He likes to get to the rim. But when they are going to close out on him, his lightning speed is going to be able to create opportunities for himself, draw defenders, and then Wembanyama is only going to improve. His stats are going to go up. We're going to see De'Aaron Fox get a lot of assists. We're going to see Chris Paul have an effect on potentially De'Aaron Fox, because we know what Chris Paul is known for developing young guards and helping young teams start reaching new heights that they haven't seen yet. We saw it with Phoenix. We saw it with OKC. Look at Shea. Look at what Shea's doing. Now he's an MVP caliber candidate because he spent one season with Chris Paul. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Chris Paul is the sole reason that SGA is good. He's not. Shea's an unbelievably talented player. But when you have experience from a guy like that, your game is going to level up. And at this point, the Spurs were able to keep everyone. They were able to keep the most valuable picks that they have, because maybe they reach the playoffs. Maybe. Who knows? If they get in the playoff game, I think Wembanyama is built for this. I know De'Aaron Fox is kind of that guy. Then the one playoff series he had against Golden State a few years ago, I think he put up at least 40 on Steph, but that was the sole reason the Kings were able to push those Warriors to 7, because De'Aaron Fox single-handedly went shot for shot with Steph Curry. That is why the Warriors had to go to 7 with these Kings, because De'Aaron Fox can take over in a moment at any given. With two guys like Wembanyama and Fox who have that trigger, who have that mentality, who have that switch can just flip, the possibilities are endless at this point. But maybe the Spurs find themselves in the postseason. Maybe that pick that they have, their own pick for 2025, doesn't become a lottery pick because they make the postseason. Well, guess what? Now Atlanta is struggling, and they may find themselves in the midst of a top 10 pick if Atlanta continues to struggle and they can't make any moves at the deadline. Obviously, Tre Young is going to keep them afloat. He is absolutely sensational. I wanted him last year. We know that, but at this point, it's just Tre Young and a bunch of guys. I think Clint Capella could potentially be on the move. We'll see how that goes down. Maybe that's someone the Spurs try to target since they need a backup center. But we'll see how Atlanta is going to continue to play out. Young's going to keep them afloat, but the Spurs could be looking at a top 10 pick, potentially making the postseason, and the future of Fox and Wemby together. This is going to be exciting. The Spurs now enter the rodeo road trip annually. That is going to kick off on Monday night when they take on the Memphis Grizzlies, and then they won't be back for a long time. So De'Aaron Fox is going to be on the road for quite some time before he makes his Frost Bank Center debut, and that is going to be a fun game. I just am so excited that we're finally going to have a elite running mate next to Wembanyama. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed the news, hit the like, subscribe. Sorry I haven't posted a lot. College is it's a lot. It's a big time. So I'm always trying to post, but I was luckily home when this trade went down. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you never miss when I upload on Ty Talk Sports. And until then, I will see you guys next time.